Hi there and welcome to a guide on how to use Google Cloud Batch with task runners. This is a great way for being able to access additional compute power without having to access it all the time. So if you've got certain tasks that only need to access it when they run, task runners are perfect for it. Now, through this guide, I'm going to walk you through how to set up Google Cloud correctly so that you can use Google Cloud Batch, as well as how you can then connect that to your Kestra instance. Let's jump in and walk through how to use Google Cloud. Jumping into Google Cloud, the first thing we're going to want to do is create a brand new project that we can put our task runner in. So what I'm going to do here is go to the menu at the top here, and I'm going to put new project. Now I can call this project whatever I like, name it something that will help you remember what it is. I'm going to call it Kestra GCP. Once I've done this, I can then press create. Once it's created, we can now select the project. And now we can see in the top left-hand corner that we are in the project. So we're ready to make our task runners. Now, in order to use task runners, we have to enable the Batch API, which will then allow Kestra to talk to Google Cloud. So we can search for that in the search bar. Here we can see it at the top, and when I select that, it will give us the option to press enable. Now that the Batch API has successfully enabled, we can now create some credentials to be able to access this inside of Kestra. To do that, we can head over to this Create Credentials button in the top right-hand corner. And this will enable us to create a service account. Now, because we want a service account, we're going to click application data here rather than user data. Then we can press next. And here is where we're going to name our service account. Now, I'm just going to very simply call this Kestra GCP Task Runner. And that will, make it easy for us to remember what it's used for. But you can name it whatever you'd like. Once we've done this, we can click continue, and then we can select the roles that we're going to need. Because we want to use batch tasks, we're going to make sure that we've got a role for that. We also want to be able to access logs generated from these tasks, and we also want to be able to access Google Cloud Storage, which is really important for being able to store any files generated from these tasks. So to begin with, we're going to put in the role of batch editor, as well as a log viewer. And then lastly, we're going to add the storage object admin role as well. Once we've done this, we can click continue. Now we've done that, we can press done, and this will create our service account. We can now head over to credentials on the left-hand side here, and we can see that our service account is there ready to go. We can also see a compute engine default service account. We want to be able to make sure that our service account can access the compute engine one to be able to create compute resources. Now, the best way to do this is by copying the email for our new service account, going over to our new compute engine one, clicking permissions, granting access, and we can just paste it in there as so, and then change the role to be the service account user because we just want to be able to run operations on this account. Once we've done that, we can press save, and we now have all the correct permissions that we need. Now, to make sure that Kestra can access this, we need to go to our GCP Task Runner service account, which we can do by going to service accounts here. And then once we click on that, we can then generate some keys. Now we can click on add key, create new key, and we want to use the JSON type as we'll be base64 encoding the JSON to then access it as a Kestra secret. Once I've done that, it will download a file to our computer that we can then put into Kestra. Before we leave Google Cloud, we do also need to just set up our GCS, which is Google Cloud Storage, and then we're ready to start setting up Kestra. We can just search for GCS in the search bar and find Cloud Storage at the top. Once we've done that, we can press create, name our bucket. We can name this whatever we like. I'm going to call this Kestra GCP Task Runner Bucket. Once we've done that, we can click continue. Select our region. I'm going to use EU West 2 as that's nearest to me, but pick a region that suits you. We can then leave the rest of the options as their defaults and just press continue until we can click create. Once we've done that, we can then wait for it to process, and now we are ready to start setting up Kestra. Jumping into Kestra, we can now create our flow. We can do this by clicking create my first flow, and then what we want to do is then use the example you can find in the description below. Now, this example is very simple, and all it does is it uses the Python commands task, and it has an input file here. And the input file you can see just simply gets information about the task runner that we're using and then puts it into a nice file for us to view. So because of this, we are going to need a few secrets inside of the task runner property that is just a property of the plugin. So that makes it really easy to configure. Now, all we need to do is select the type, which is GCP runner.batch, as well as put in our project ID, region, bucket, and service account. Now, we've got a separate guide on how to create secrets with Google service accounts. I'd recommend checking that out to get this all set up. Now that we've got it all set up, we're ready to execute. So as we execute this flow, we will see that the task runner itself will start creating a instance in Google Cloud, and then it will add our file there using Google Cloud Storage. As you can see inside of the GCP console, we can actually see that the task has been created in Google Cloud as we would expect on Europe West 2, and this is getting executed as we speak. As you can see, it's actually generated all of the data we were expecting from our task runner in the Python script, and it has generated an output as well that we'll be able to access once the task has finished. And so when I go to outputs, we can see that it has generated a JSON file with this data in it as well. So this is just a great example of how powerful using task runners can be and how you can tap into extra compute power without needing to run your entire Kestra instance on it all the time. Hopefully you found that useful. We are going to have a few other guides on how to do this on Azure as well as AWS, so stay tuned for those. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, make sure to join our Slack community where you can ask us questions there.